Alright, welcome back to Nick Lenz, Comic Corner Classic Non-Classics. This episode number 3095 and Doubleshot 2989. Both these two trades were released in the same decade, both written by really good writers at that point. First we have is Runaways. This is Runaways, volume number 8. No, 7, yeah. Volume 7, which contains 19 and 24. Which pretty much takes place after Young Avengers as Runaways. Now, this will be Brian K. Vaughan's last trade. This will actually collect issues from his run. This is the end of his run. It's kind of interesting in the fact he would end it right here. You're probably thinking, why in the world would he end it right here? Maybe because basically he felt as though that, okay, we brought the book past the number issue from the previous volume. Probably figured, oh, yeah, I'm leaving for the next issues, and then he got replaced and the book got relaunched. So we begin right where the last book left off. We have Gertrude basically just mourning the death of her future self. And then we have apparently present, it looks like Nico and Victor Machina are basically an item in this book. Yes, seriously. And this side with Molly and the Toad. And then we have Zavin and Corella, which of course they can head back to space and basically stranded. Of course they can stay there. And then, of course, basically, you have a guy with antiques like a Cap says, only dorkwads stay in school. And then we have a guy who's using the Force. We just have a lot of stuff happening here. We have by a monster in LA. There's a little stuff here with Zavin, who's basically become part of the Runaways group. Which that was really cool. Yeah, they fight this monster, of course, this issue and the previous issue. And then, of course, they deal with the whole Golems thing. Of course, possibly reviving Gertrude, who died just in the previous set of issues. As for that happens, no, it does not happen here. Yeah. We have more fighting here, more portals, and basically we just have a lot of fun stuff happening here over the course of these issues. Stay regular, and of course, basically, oh, the only reviver is by human sacrifice, which, if he does, well, it's not here. So, then you have Molly playing, looks like Risk with Zavin. Yes. And then, it's like, we see possible versus her parents, and nope, it's not Molly. It's Nico, because she knows her parents are complete dicks, and they're dead. Then we see possibly Chase's mom considering sacrificing Nico. Don't worry, it doesn't happen. Oh yeah. Then we have Chase. Looks like he's about to manipulate her, and all of a sudden it's Zavin. Yep, just tricking her. Yeah, and of course, Chase wants to use Nico to offer herself to revive Gertrude. That's a Victor, and then, of course, the whole thing is possibly bringing back Gertrude, and that will lead to the final issue of the run. So, yeah. Oh yeah, and also the fact he also offered him the weapons that they gave the parents, and then he possibly nearly dies, but then then Victor saved by Nico saves Victor saved by Nico saved by Victor, and then Zav basically is on the ground with these spirits. Yes, and then the book ends. We have Iron Man showing up at their base operations. And of course, basically, and then the book ends. The last thing we see is Alex Wilder in the afterlife. And you read that, you're like, really? This is how Brian K. Vaughan ends his run after 2 years? But don't worry, the book isn't over yet. Oh no. There's still one more issue for this run. If you're thinking, like, wait. Yeah, there's one more trade, and it's by, of all people, Joss Whedon. Excuse me. And from what I can remember, is the only other book he ever wrote for Marvel Comics. So, this is the end of his run. I give this book here I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Final thoughts on Brian K. Vaughan's run for the title. This is the guy who started this book. And he doesn't want to finish it. He was the most recent writer for the book. Oh no, that was Ray Morale. And since he left the book has gone through 3 writers in almost 20 years. Yeah, that's because the book got relaunched after Joss Whedon's very brief run. And then Volume 3 got put in hiatus for being retooled. And it took Marvel Comics 10 years to release another volume. By the way, it's because the book character is active. Yes, I still need to interview also Young Avengers Runaways, the 2 miniseries for that one. That needs to be reviewed at some point. But with this, basically, I'm almost done with Volume 2 of Runaways. So you got one more trade left, and then it's on to Volume 3. But next up, basically, we're going back in time to the year 2000. To the very book that launched an imprint that was very popular for 10 years until Marvel Comics decided to think, oh, there's too much continuity. Let's basically kill it in a miniseries that was really bad. Like, good start. And people thought after this one miniseries that this whole universe was dead because a lot of people died. But don't worry, the universe continued for another 5 years. Don't worry about that. Okay, next up we have is Ultimate Spider-Man, Power and Responsibility. This is, of course, the first volume. This collects the first 7 issues of this popular comic book. Now, I wasn't reading comic at the time this book came out. I started reading 4 years in this book's run. Yes, written by Michael Bendis, art by Mark Bagley. And this will kick off the record of the longest run in Marvel comic history of a writer and artist. A 113 issue run. This surpassed Jack Kirby and Stan Lee on Fantastic Four. Yes, it took Marvel Comics 40 years to allow a creative team to last this long. Can you think of any creative team that lasts as long as this? Lasting over almost 10 years on this freaking title. Almost 10 years. And this is the start of it. So, in the opening issue, by the way, think of these first 7 issues as sort of put basically a modern retelling of Amazing Fantasy 15 and maybe some early issues of Amazing Spider-Man in the 60s. So, we start in the opening issue. We see Norman Osborn with a spider, which is bitten by Peter Parker, but Peter Parker is to be bitten with the spider. So, of course, we have all these people here, and Peter Parker with his glass is being bullied by Flash Thompson. And of course, we have this guy called Kenan Kong here. And also, we have Mary Jane Watson here in the high school. Now, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, she was here in the original timeline. She was. And you're thinking, Mary Jane going to the same high school as Peter, and also later on they see Flash Thompson get fight with them. Like, you're thinking, this seems familiar. That's kind of because this is also partially adapted for the first Spider-Man movie released in 2002. Yeah, my guess is that Sam must take inspiration. We also see Ben Parker here with long hair, which I mean, he didn't have at the present time. He must be much older. And he also was here, who was never in the original timeline. In the main universe, he never attended the same high school as Peter. They first met in college. That character being Harry Osborn. Yes, and one of the scenes in this book was also, I would say, inspired for a scene in the Amazing Spider-Man 2012 film. So, we have the whole thing with basketball. Of course, look like Peter, it's like, yeah, and of course being distracted. And look up also that in this issue here, like, we have the whole thing with hanging out with Ben and the old science stuff here. And then, of course, we have normal with Harry, which, by the way, these two were not around the early years of Amazing Spider-Man. Oh no, they were not. They didn't make their debut to just past issue 30. Basically, by the time Norman and Harry showed up, this was toward the end of Steve Ditko's run on the title as the artist. That's when these two first showed up. So you have Peter getting bit by a spider, and MJ being there. Now, MJ being in the area for this was not present in the original issue of Amazing 15. This is made for the issue. Now, they also use this kind of idea for Amazing Spider-Man 1 because Mary Jane was there, but there in the movie he was taking pictures like but here he's like, this massive bite in his head. It gets on Mary Jane, of course the spider swine goes to smashed, though there was another spider bit used years later. So Peter starts acting really weird. He goes home on the bus, does stuff with Norman, and Peter's acting really strangely, and he takes out King Kong really easy, like, sorry. Yep. And then, of course, basically, like, his head's getting weird, like, a bunch of medical issues. Of course, his arm looks really weird to his veiny stuff. And, of course, Sample's radioactive blood gets taken. And, of course, Oscorp is examining this radioactive blood. And then, of course, you have a guy following Peter. Of course, this is the debut of a spider sense. He's witnessing this. And, okay, you think at this point, like, there's no costume, no web shooters yet. There's no sense that he has spider strength yet. Basically, all we know is that he has the agility of a spider, and he has spider sense. That's it. And now we debut about, let's see. Basically, partway to the first issue, actually over halfway through, we debut the fingers thing. Of course, they didn't show a close like they did in the Amazing Spider movie. Where he's sticking to walls, and first issue ends him sticking to the ceiling, and then of course the whole thing. Of course, he actually breaks a desk. This is twice of the course he's breaking a desk, and then we have Flash just hitting on Mary Jane. She's like not interested, and then of course basically Peter, being a sensible one, decides to throw the basket and bounces off the rim and hits Flash Thompson right in the jaw. Like, ow! And he's like, keep your hands off her, Thompson. Leave her alone. Out of your freaking hand, Parker? Flash, get out of here. Hit the showers. You're done. He hit me. I'll deal with it. Hit the showers, Thompson. 3 o'clock is only 1 hour away. Really? What's 5 plus 4? 1 hour. That sucks. I didn't do anything. Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, Peter was saying that you see, the way Flash was basically hitting it, basically, Mary Jane was not into it at all. She was not into it. She was saying no, he was saying yes, and then they start their fight, which they have the whole thing of like smashing his hand, which he also did in the movie too. Like he just hits his hand, gets smashed, and they have the whole thing look like yeah. And of course, reporters to Harry, and of course he gets an argument with his uncle. So he just practices at an abandoned warehouse, and we see his spider strength show up, which leads him basically to an abandoned car. And he apologizes for his actions, and there's more stuff here. He gets look around. He gets stat. He gets basically like take a sample. By the way, I should point out though that he's introduced a Dr. Octopus here in the second issue, mind you. And this is pre-Octopus Arms. In the main universe, he only knew the reputation he never met before he became Dr. Octopus. So you see him just walk up to him, take a needle, and roll his sleeve up, take a sample. By the way, he never consented to this at all. He never consented to being sampled like this. And then he leaves. I gotta admit, he made the right decision basically to leave. Though going to the emergency exit is weird. And of course he leaves and they examine it, and then of course lead to the next issue, where Then we have a scene that was clearly taken from Fantasy 15 where Crusher Hogan, which what he was in the original issue. Here he's like a loudmouth jerk, and of course he's like demanding, "Hey, someone get me in the ring for me for 1 hour," and it's UCW, which it could be unlimited championship wrestling. It's like, I'll pay you this much, but it's like, and the Kane's like, I want to go. Nope. No way, youngster. Turn it up. It's like, you suck, Crusher. So then, of course, Peter suggests, oh, why not Flash basically do it? Like, nope. And then he proceeds to just take his glasses off, put a sweater on, and then he jumps in the ring, fights him, and beats him with a body slam. And he does in a few minutes and gets some money. And then, of course, basically, Peter's earning money with his wrestling stuff. Of course, he sneaks out to do wrestling. Of course, he does basketball, too. He's really good here. And then at one point, basically, he's like, "Way to go, Spider-Man." Yeah, and of course, Crush had no problem, basically, him healing away. Like, nah, don't push it. Yeah, the whole thing, like, the bag, and of course, then he debuts the costume he would actually wear for a good chunk of the early portion of the series. Around the first 50 issues, he wear this thing, and then they get damaged. Then Norman gets tested. And then, of course, basically, we have explosion happen with Dr. was surviving, which, yes, this also kind of happened in movie 2, with him being tested, which then he beats up more wrestlers. And then he's accused of stealing the petty cash, despite the fact that it's like, "Oh, just pop $2 on the way. Hello? Where's petty cash? I give up. Where's petty cash? We keep them box of freeze in the office." And the thing is, he's accused of stealing money, despite the fact he wasn't stealing money. So I remember basically this whole wrestling thing. I remember also the scene differently. It's been years since I read this. I kind of remember him seeing with a championship belt on his shoulder, because he wasn't there for a while. Then he leaves and becomes a vigilante. Well, not immediately. And then, like, yeah, and of course the whole thing with the grades doesn't like it. And of course he gets to cool his head. And then of course we have, look like Peter Mahino look like possibly Verge Liz Allen. And yeah, Liz Allen, of course, hits on her, of course, basically like Mary Jane, who has snake room. And then Parker shows up, and of course they get into an argument, which kind of, this didn't technically happen in the original book. This is stuff in the movie that we have this mysterious figure, and he comes home and like, oh crap, that Ben Parker's been killed, and it's a fire, and his body is taken away, and then of course he leaves to go deal with the guy. And unlike the original comic, we actually did see him. Here it's just completely random. It's like, oh, we have this guy apparently seeing a flashback, which was not shown in this book. And they show him like, oh, look. Now this scene looks familiar. Like, I know that face. Yes, Mark Bagley was recreating this very scene from Fantasy 15. Where, and then of course the guy is lower down. Now, in the original comic, he was on with webs. Here he's with a rope. And then he's arrested. I think this is supposed to be George Stacy here. Gwen's father. They don't identify him in this issue. And this whole thing of that great power, great responsibility, which in the original, they actually put the flashback in the main story here, and then they have a flashback later on. And with him saying they wrote up with Matt, this actually was the ending of Fantasy 15, and everything afterwards was just, you see him basically making a name for himself. He's basically very sad. And then we have more crazy stuff happening. By issue 6, we debuted J. Jonah Jameson, who, by the way, in the original comic universe, debuted in Amazing Spider-Man #1, where it's to his son, John Jameson. And I believe we also debut Randy Roberts in this universe. I believe the guy in the goatee, I think it's supposed to be the version of Ben Urich. We also have Betty Brant who's taking notes, and Randy Robertson. Yep, all about Spider-Man here. Of course, he's being cheered, and yeah, they of course fall asleep, and then he breaks his nose again. And of course, Harry shows up, and then all of a sudden, the school is attacked. Spider-Man comes to play, and then of course he changes. Yeah, what's going with the fire? Well, that is because the Green Goblin has shown up. Yes. Yeah, the Green Goblin has shown up at Midtown High. Which, okay, so, which of course this leads to a brawl with him and Peter, which lasts for a lot of this issue. Now, first question to ask, was Midtown High ever attacked by one of Spider-Man's villains? Kind of, but that was mostly put just Sandman, just in one class him. It was it wasn't like a massive brawl like it is here. This is completely original, which they did loosely adapt this for the 2012 Amazing Spider-Man movie, where except instead of being Green Goblin, it's the Lizard. And it was a local teacher of his in that book. So, they fight, and of course the fight lasts for the last 2 issues of this book, which is awesome. And for a while after this, basically, Midtown High remains under repairs until it's fixed because of this attack by Norman Osborn, which reference he falls off a bridge. And then for some reason, the military starts firing him. And they start firing him. And the whole thing is like, they say like, nope. And then he said, nope, he's actually alive. And of course, Harry's taken away because he's have his father, Mary, and then of course everybody remember loved ones. And then the book ends with, oh, something might be alive in the water because no one fell in the water. Great opening issues. Love this book. 10 out of 10. That's why I give Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1. And we have, on here, I can basically review about 7 more volumes because the last 2 on here, I've already technically the issues of them already, so about 7 more, but don't worry, I will review more. Don't worry about that. But yeah, 2 really good books. I would say the 2, Ultimate Spider-Man is really good. I know my Tiff, he loved this book. I don't know if he's actually reviewed Ultimate Spider-Man, this era of Ultimate Spider-Man for his channel. Tiff, if you're watching, if you have this for your channel, please feel free to link it in the comments below. So, that's pretty much a particular review. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Next up, more to future. Okay, thanks, Phil. Bye.